begin this week and Shabbat, we end the book of Exodus. We wrap up the story of the 600,000 Israelites' exodus from Egypt. We conclude the book of the Torah, in which we tell the tales of our covenant with God and the building of the Mishkan, the tabernacle, so that God will dwell with us, not in the tabernacle, but with us, as we begin the next journey through the wilderness until we reach that place we're trying to settle safely. As a Jewish people, historically, we know what it's like to flee oppression. Some of us don't have to go way back to the story of slavery in Egypt to tell our tale. Some of us can share our family's flight within the last 2 or 3 generations, if not our own, from Eastern Europe, Central or South America, or other lands. Many of us are thinking today of Jews and non-Jews alike who are in the midst of fleeing Ukraine, comprising 1 million refugees. According to statistics reported by HIAS, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society that we heard about earlier from our teens, there are now estimated to be more than 84 million people who have been forcibly displaced due to persecution and violence. 26.6 million of these people are refugees. Our own families' immigration stories have influenced many of us to become involved in refugee work. The repetition in the Torah of not oppressing the stranger, for we were strangers in the land of Egypt, and the teaching of Hachnasat Hager, welcoming the stranger, reinforce this value. Members of Beth Emet have a history of supporting refugees from Cambodia and the former Soviet Union to Syria, among others, and now, most recently, Afghanistan. In a moment, we will hear from Alison Finkel, who stepped up to lead our congregation in supporting so far 1 family from Afghanistan, along with a core team of leaders. And you can come to the front of the bima when I call your name. Alison Finkel. Rosalie Greenberger's not here tonight, but I want to acknowledge her. She might be watching from the blessing of technology. Leslie Levin-Shulruff, Kathy Caberon, myself, and Jesse McDonald. And I want to add that Jesse is also serving as Beth Emet's liaison to the Chicago Jewish Coalition for Refugees that helped connect us with HIAS and JCFS to do the work that we've been doing. This is our core team of leaders, but I know that many people here in this room tonight and those of you watching us remotely have also been involved. So if you have contributed to the welcoming of this family in any way, maybe you donated a piece of furniture or something for the kitchen or made a financial donation, I invite you to stand. If you are joining us through technology and want to share something that some way you participated in helping this family, please do so. Invite those of you who have participated to rise just to acknowledge and thank you. I think the entire Finkel family should stand just in supporting Alison in this work and the spouses of the people who are up here. So thank you all. When we conclude a book in the Torah, it's customary to recite the words Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek, which means be strong, and let us be strengthened. The strength we seek is to propel us through the Torah to the next book and to continue reading our story. There's also a metaphoric strength that we seek when we want to move forward in life, whether we are the refugee family along the journey or we are the ones supporting the refugees or those seeking asylum. So as I invite Alison Finkel to share her words with us This evening, let us say together, Chazak, Chazak, V'nit Chazek.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alison Finkel, and it is really an honor to give this Devar Torah tonight on behalf of the entire volunteer committee working with this Afghan refugee family who is here in Chicago. We first learned about this opportunity, as Rabbi Memis-Foler said, through HIAS, during a meeting last summer that was part of the Chicago Jewish Coalition for Refugees, for which Jesse McDonald is our representative. There are many, many organizations who are supporting refugees here in Chicago, but we were drawn to HIAS, like others have said here tonight, because of our shared Jewish values. Their president, Mark Hetfield, has frequently been quoted as saying, "We used to take refugees because they were Jewish. Now we take them because we are." Beth Emmet is supporting a family of 6, 2 adults and 4 kids, who arrived here to the bitter cold and snowy January weather, and they settled into a Skokie apartment that was provided to them and that was furnished by Beth Emmet members. The kids are a delightful but boisterous group, aged 7, 5, 3, and 18 months. They're among the nearly 75,000 Afghan refugees who were forced to flee Afghanistan last fall, and among the 3,000 who now call Chicago home. This dramatic influx, as well as the need to restart programs following cuts under the Trump administration, have left supporting agencies scrambling to meet the needs of so many people. And that's where we come in. As we reflect together on our growing relationship with this family, what perhaps stands out the most to us is how profound this experience has been. First, I'll name our own profound cultural assumptions, but frankly, more often misassumptions, about what a new arriving refugee family will need. We could only anticipate what an American family would want, and it shows how short we fell in understanding what they would expect. For example, it was amazing. We stocked their kitchen with cake pans and cookie sheets and a muffin tin, only to realize this is a family that has never eaten a muffin. So we'll put that assumption aside. In addition to that, they have never used a Western-style oven, and particularly not anything that has a dial in Fahrenheit degrees. So you start to understand immediately this chasm of understanding that exists between us and them. In addition, we bought them these sleek matching bottles: shampoo, conditioner, body wash, body lotion. But imagine if you had to read those labels in Pashto. Would you be able to tell the difference? And how do we explain how you use each one when you have no common language? Wouldn't an old-fashioned bar of soap perhaps have been a little bit less complicated and easier to give to them? Similarly, we went to help the family make use of the washing machine that's in the laundry room in the basement of their building. And then we discovered that Mom and Dad, who every time we come over greet us with these gracious, gracious smiles, had literally been wearing the same outfit for months. So imagine if you needed to ask for socks and underwear. Then, even still, several weeks later, Mom was still doing the wash in the bathtub. So with a little coaxing, I took her downstairs and finally discovered the root of the issue. They didn't understand that it's a common practice to load the washer, flip it, and come back for it when it was done. It just wouldn't even have occurred to them, right, that they could leave their possessions unattended. And they certainly didn't want to try to entertain 4 kids for several hours as they waited for their clothes to go through the process. So it was with this flash of recognition, right, that Mom realized what this laundry room could do for her. And one afternoon, we took everything in the house. We took the towels and the sheets, the tablecloth came off, all the clothes came off, because suddenly we had crossed this invisible barrier of understanding. It was a small but a big success. But now you extrapolate these fairly harmless examples into something where the stakes are much higher, and you realize this profound mountain that this family will need to climb to be successful here. If it takes that many steps to demystify a washing machine, How do you begin the process of applying for and being approved for public aid? If you're sick, who do you call? If you are illiterate in your native language, Pashto, as we suspect Mom may be, how do you begin to learn English and read it? And how do you load something like a venture card and make sure that you've gotten on the correct bus to go to your job? So we, this group of volunteers, we jumped in with collective enthusiasm and our hearts and our minds, and we went to work registering for them for school and trying to get them set up with a job. But we've realized quite painfully at times how many aspects of their life are just totally bewildering. And we're watching pretty helplessly as they are going through their own profound process of grief and mourning. This is not a family that had American aspirations. They are a family who was thriving under the Afghan government for decades that was supported by American intervention. It's a family that saw their future vanish and their lives suddenly in grave danger, and who then found themselves on the other side of the world. They left behind all of their extended family, their home. They left almost all of their possessions and their 3 dogs. Here, everything that previously provided them with status or security or safety are missing almost entirely. And here they have almost no means to communicate. They bring expectations of what they're owed and what they will need. And yet here they get us, right? These well-meaning but totally clueless Americans who don't act like them or dress like them or eat like them. We wear these N95s when we're in their apartment, which makes it even harder to communicate and forces us to refuse their hospitality, like eating and drinking together. And yet we are the ones who have been tasked with helping them to create their life here. How do we create trust? How do we begin to even relate to this sense of trauma and to understand their fears? How do we provide consistency and reliability so that we're helpful and not another barrier to their success here? How do we create opportunities to learn English, to integrate their kids, to find employment, to make friends, so that all of these things are available to them when they are ready to take on new challenges? Well, I'd say it starts by investing our time. We have invested so much time. Every visit without an agenda just yields so many new details about who they are and what they need, and it deepens our connection with them. I feel like I now play this official role that I call funny waving American lady as they're on WhatsApp and FaceTime calls with all of their family back in Afghanistan. And a big breakthrough for me was that their 5-year-old, who for weeks would just say, "Excuse me," to get my attention, kind of burst out with a "Yeah, Alison," and I felt like we had crossed another bridge in understanding and friendship. So we are trying to respect their choices, even when they're not our own, and even when they're not what we would choose. This is one that's especially hard for me. They're their own family, and they must be able to make their own future here. But we're committing to sticking around. So HIAS requires that we spend 3 months in a volunteer commitment with this family. But if they'll have us, we hope to be part of it for much, much longer. And we need your help. To make this sustainable, we need more volunteers to help this family learn English and to do a myriad of orientation and mentorship activities. We need to be ready to provide financial stability through a fund that we've established here at Beth Emmet, so we can have a bridge and a backstop for this family when their aid inevitably runs out, and hopefully to help us establish a bit of a nest egg so that we can work with more families in the future. And finally, we hope that you will support advocacy efforts that are aimed at easing immigration restrictions for this family and many like them. You can find all of the specifics for how to get involved in this week's Beth Emmet email. We are so, so appreciative of the many, many Beth Emmet families, I think 100 families, who have answered our requests or ready to provide for this family, and to everyone who continues to lend their support. It is yet another embodiment of the way that this congregation truly lives its values. And this one, welcoming the stranger, could not have come to life in a more vivid way. I am guessing, but I have not asked, that this family had never met a Jew before arriving here in the US. let alone this whole gaggle of us that they've had in their apartment for a traditional meal. And I'm hopeful that when they learn this detail about us, they will see not our religion, but the shared values that brought us together, and that despite our cultural differences, they will see the many more ways that we are the same. Shabbat Shalom.